Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Ready, Aim, Retire, the show that focuses on everything retirement, getting you through, helping you out with your legacy. Today, I am here as usual with Tony Shore from the great state of Minnesota. We're coming off the Minnesota Fair, Tony, aren't we?
We are coming off the Minnesota Fair, still a little logy from all the sugar and deep fried foods I
Yep.
ate at the fair. I have to tell you, I did try for the first time this year the deep fried Twinkie.
Okay.
They actually take a Twinkie and they put it in batter and they deep fry it. And I want to tell you, Rob, and our listeners and viewers out there, you can actually feel your arteries harden as you eat it.
I would love that, though.
And it was good. And then there's a cheese curd taco that is quite delicious. The roasted sweet corn with butter, they're roasting them there. It's delicious. And of course, I had the cheese curds
For sure.
I had a wild rice burger that's it's actual meat, but they mix Minnesota wild rice in it.
You were talking with that.
Yeah,
like
it's so good. I get that every year. It's the best thing at the fair, in my opinion. The popular items this year were the pickle pizza. That line was ridiculous. It was like 2 blocks long, the line to get pickle pizza, and it's outrageously priced. To me, overrated. I've had it. But and it's good for one slice. And I'm not a big pickle guy. It's pretty good, actually.
The best thing is the rice burger.
The wild rice burger and the cheese curds at the Minnesota State Fair, I don't believe can be beat. Also, the Reuben sandwich at O'Gara's, the Irish pub there inside the fair. They grill it up right there, fresh sauerkraut. If you like Reuben's, it's delicious. That's the best Reuben I think I've ever had. So.
Wow, it's a sad day, folks. You know,
fair's over.
Fair talk, so we're gonna have to fill the airways.
We're actually gonna have to talk about finances today.
Oh, we gotta do that, do we? Oh,
but how was your Labor Day weekend? I mean, how did you do?
Mine was good. You know, I spent it with Natalie and my daughter from New York. We all met in Scottsdale. So we went out to Scottsdale.
That's right.
So she wanted to hang out there. We don't see her as much, too often. So she wanted some warm weather. Well, we got it, Tony. It was 107 degrees. As a fair-skinned Irish person, I don't do well in the high heat. So we found other things to do. But you know what we did? Is one day, so it's steamy hot. It was steamy hot, and clients that you're listening out there, I got a bunch of you in Arizona. I always say, how do you do it in the summer? And I'll say it again, how do you do it in the summer? Because that is hot. But we went to this class. So like on TripAdvisor somewhere, Natalie found this place where this guy will teach you how to cook crepes in his own house. So we went to this guy's house. I'm like, really? Are you sure? So Natalie, myself, and Megan go to this guy's house. He's 100% French. Like he can speak English, but he's got the accent, got the whole thing. So it's very authentic, I felt, for a guy making crepes. Taught us how to do it. We're flipping them in the air, doing this, eating them. And I'll tell you, we're there for 3 or 4 days. That was probably my highlight.
That's awesome. That sounds like fun. Now you're from Canada. You were born and raised in Canada. So is there a connection there with the French guy? I mean, obviously there's a lot of French Canadians.
There is.
Is that just a coincidence or?
No. Like I think he's authentic crepe maker. He's from Paris. So
sure. Wow, this guy's legit.
Oh,
he's not even just Quebec French. He's from France.
No, he's the real deal. And in Canada, so where I grew up anyway, Tony. So you have to take. So there's no French where I grew up, but you have to take French up until 9th grade, and if you pass, you don't have to take it again. And I had Mr. DeRoche was my teacher. I hung around. I played hockey with his son. Thank goodness. And he gave me the passing grade was 50. And I remember opening that report card up going, oh, gosh, I hope Mr. DeRoche, and I knew him since I was a little kid.
Sure.
I hope he gave me 50 on the number, which was generous because I am not good at French.
Which was generous.
Super generous. I thanked him. I always thought like you didn't make me take it, sophomore year. It was like great. So
he probably gave you extra credit because you like poutine. On the French test.
By the way, and I know we're getting way off topic, and people you're probably fast forwarding by now, but I saw. So my daughter's got a friend that plays for University of Minnesota for hockey.
Oh
so
yeah,
I was watching his Instagram. They went to there's a poutine hut there at the Minnesota State Fair.
there
So they
is,
had
and it's
two Canadians.
it's great.
Yeah, two Canadian hockey players, two American. They're like, we got to try this out, and they were like, they raved about it. Said it was awesome. They said
Yeah,
it was
they have.
the Canadian guys.
Yeah, it's legit. The
Yeah.
poutine stand at the Minnesota State Fair is run by people who know what they're doing.
Yeah.
It's not just a U.S. version of poutine, which I've had at places in the U.S. that have poutine. Sometimes it's pretty dodgy.
Yeah, it's not as good, but
No.
yeah. What are you gonna do?
What are you going to do? So now today we're talking about the elections and your portfolio. What's myth? What's reality? Rob, fill us in. What is myth and reality out there?
Yes. So at the beginning of the year, Tony, you might remember we did a show on elections.
Yes.
And I said, you know what, we're gonna do one more. I'm not a big political guy, like but people need to know some things. And so I thought, let's do one more. We're 8 weeks away. We're kind of in that, the rhetoric, the lawn signs, the TV ads. We're in it. We're in the mix, and
memes.
The memes. You get the memes and all that kind of stuff. And so I pulled a few articles, and I got one from Investopedia, and election results are actually cited as the number one fear for investors. So the 2024 elections, 61% of people have fear, fear about the elections, fear about the results. The next one down is the war in the Middle East, a recession, inflation, U.S. relations with China, high interest rates, war in Ukraine, and so on and so forth. But 61% of the people. So I thought, you know what, let's do another one. The show today, though, we're going to more focus on the myths versus reality. And I say that because a lot of people, when it comes to elections, they get angst. They have, their views. There's other views. And man, I'm going to tell you, over the last, maybe 3 elections, 4 elections, these things are actually causing angst in families now. That never used to be. You always had that crazy uncle that did, said crazy things at the table. I'm like, oh, it's Uncle George. Don't worry about. But now it's becoming like, families aren't talking, and families are broken apart over this. And like I said, I've never been a big political guy, and it's not good for your heart sometimes. But I definitely see it. I have many clients, that are passionate, and you should be passionate. It's your country. You should be passionate about who leads you, and I get all of that kind of stuff. So today we're gonna hit a few items. There's 4 myths that I want to outline that maybe folks can help you just take a deep breath over the next 8 weeks, and I will tell you that everything will be okay. Once we get on the other side. So the first one: government policy drives investment returns. So while policy can influence market behaviors in the short term, it has a very limited impact long term. And I say that because there's many layers to the government. So this election is about the new president, but it's also about the House and the Senate and who gets that control. We'll talk about that a little bit later, kind of how that feels out. But people get really focused on that. But geez, if I'm the president and I say I want to do this, there is fail safes to come into play. It has to pass through certain things. And when it comes to markets, it's based on fundamentals in the economy. There's a saying, presidents don't make markets, they inherit them. There's nothing really a president can do to make the stock market go up, make the stock market go down. It's all the economy. And I've said to clients over maybe the last 60 days that are kind of like, anxious and fearful. And I say to them, listen, after this meeting, if you want to go to Chipotle, do you check who the president is first? Or do you just go to Chipotle because you feel like Chipotle? And that's what the stock market is. It's Chipotle's and TJ Maxx's and, all of these companies.
Yep.
And if the consumer is strong and they're doing good and the companies are high, running efficiently and doing their job, then their stock goes up. If they're not, it goes down. And it's quite as simple as that.
Right. And even you look at the big companies, you look at the S&P 500 and the big 10 that drive that. You're thinking about, if you look at Apple or Google or Nvidia or any big company, right?
Yeah.
Apple makes profits, right?
Yeah.
And the stock market is based on companies' performance, right? Those are stocks in companies. And do you think those big companies in the S&P 500, does Apple stop making money if a certain party gets in over another one? It doesn't.
Exactly.
Apple doesn't care who the president is. They do care about some economic policies, but they are going to find a way to make money. The stock market has proven that it does not care which party is in office. If you look at the last 100 years, right?
It doesn't. Yeah. And it really, and we'll show a chart later, Tony, but
Sure.
it doesn't matter. Now you're right. Certain policies can make a company like Apple pivot a little bit. Maybe they have to bring chips in from somewhere else. Maybe they have to manufacture in a different way. There's definitely things like that where different presidents, put their stamp on it, and that's been from the beginning of time. But companies like Apple and companies like you mentioned, like Google and the Magnificent Seven, they pivot, and also companies like Johnson and Johnson pivot,
right?
And they have to pivot because there's certain things that come into play. There's lawsuits. There's always things that are moving parts with these companies that they have to maneuver. And presidents is just one of them. They're maneuvering all the time because we're in a global economy, and they have to be able to pivot at the right time to create profits, to then in turn make their stock price go up and benefit you, the listeners.
Right.
So that's the first one. And again, the fact that 61% of people out there are fearful because of the elections, that's kind of scary to me. It really is. But the next myth, Tony. So the next myth I'd like to talk about is political stability versus political volatility driving market returns. Okay, that's a long sentence, but I want to go through on this. And this is, from the beginning of time, and this, the stock market performance. So people always, have said to me, especially in election year, what happens if this person gets in? What happens if this person gets in? Here's the average returns in the stock market when any president gets in. And I'm going to get a little deeper on the next one on this one, but year one post-election, average market return, 8.3%. Year two, pre-midterm, because you have the midterms, it averages 3.4%. So the second year of a presidential cycle is the worst year. Year three averages 14.7%. And we're currently in year four, which averages 9.1%. So the stock market averages, and doesn't matter what president's in and what party's in. This is what it averages over time. So it performs again based on the economy, based on what's going on out there. And people again get so nervous about this stuff. And especially my retirees, people that are retired, and I say to them, listen, when you were working, you were putting money into a 401k, maybe money into a brokerage account, you were saving, you weren't stopping and going, based on presidents. You were kind of going, well, this is kind of what I got to do. And life was busy. You probably had some kids, you're running around, you're doing family things, you're busy. So you're not paying attention to it quite as much as, hey, let's face it, you got more time on your hands. Like if you're retired, you can watch a lot of this stuff, right? And you can kind of get, kind of wrapped up in it a little bit, right? And when people say to me, geez, what should we, go to cash before the election, it's going to be crazy. Well, you didn't do that when you were accumulating the money. So when you were accumulating, the reason, whatever your basket looks like out there, folks, the reason is because you didn't make these hairpin decisions, based on that. And there's many things, and we've done shows on them, Tony, which shows the individual investor, because of making decisions like that, underperforms the market by a substantial amount over time. Substantial. And I read a Vanguard study this morning saying people that work with an advisor actually average 3.4% more long-term than people that don't. And the reason is shows like this, and kind of, I am the buffer between good decision-making and bad decision-making, because
between emotional decision-making and non-emotional decision-making, right?
Good point. Yeah, exactly. Because that's what that's what drives us as humans. It's emotions, right? So, and when you're using emotions with your money, that's dangerous, and that's why we get several people that, had, done their accounts themselves over the years, and they're just like, you know what, I'm just not doing that well. And the reason is because emotions get involved. And you watch a little, TV, and you're buying this and you're doing this, and you're not really getting deep into it. So when we're looking at the myth number 2, and realizing that regardless of who's in office, market returns are going to average what they do. Now, there may be different segments. Like we have a very popular tilt portfolio, Tony, that, as certain presidents get in, we have to adjust that. We have to adjust the companies we're going to invest in based on policy. There's no doubt that definitely plays into it. It's not a whole, but there's just little shifts in there where you have to pick stocks based on kind of who's in. And that's been around from the beginning of time.
But you're not going to pull everything out of the market based on who's in. And the market's not going to crash based on who's in.
No. The market crashes because of a fundamental flaw in the economy at that moment. When we look at, the financial crisis, and we look back to then, well, there was a flaw. They were giving mortgages out to anybody that would sign their name saying, I'm good for it. There was like an IOU, like the have you ever seen Dumb and Dumber, where they're like, don't worry, we're good for it. And they had a suitcase full of paper saying they were good for it. And these are two guys that have like nothing, so like you're not going to see stuff like that, so my advice to everybody is stay the course. Don't panic on any of the things that we're going to see over the next 8 weeks, because you're going to see a lot. But guess what? We're kind of accustomed to it now. If we went back 8 years, even if we went back 12 years, it got a little kooky. That's probably the beginning of the kookiness. If I look at my political timeline, but it tends to kind of ramp up more and more, every time, and people get more and more nervous about it. But my feeling is let the cards fall where they may, but don't mix your portfolio with politics. It's just that's a toxic relationship.
Yeah.
Next one up, Tony. Political alignment and unity drives investment returns. So people have expectations that market performance, if the other side wins, so if the people I'm not voting for win, market crashes. It's over. See you later. It's going to be terrible.
The sky is falling.
Sky's falling. And I'm going to tell you, over the years, I've been doing this a long time, a handful of times, I've had clients do that. I've had clients say, no matter, I will give them data, and I will give them pages and pages, Tony, of stuff saying, listen, it doesn't make sense to do this, but end of the day, it's their money. I work for them, and they go into cash. It's never worked out once. There's not a time I made the phone call and said, you know what, that was a really good call. It's more like, I don't want to even talk about it. It's like, oh, you're ready to, okay, are you ready to put back, let's get it back in. Then, like, I don't say, I told you so. I don't say, there's a bad move. I kind of shift.
You don't give them the how much money they lost by doing that. The amount, because if you do the math, you most people, when they go to cash like that, you're losing a lot of money.
You're losing a lot. You certainly are. And the truth is, the market performance is actually best. So when we're election, and we're focused on the two main candidates, right? But actually, the market performance is best, regardless of which candidate gets in. It's when we have the Congress control split. If that's split,
gridlock,
we have gridlock. Why do markets love gridlock, Tony? Because nothing gets done. And if nothing gets done, then there's no surprises.
There's no change.
There's no change.
Yeah, and these companies can figure out how to make money based on where things are at, and if things aren't going to change, they roll along quite nicely.
Right.
The businesses in the stock market, and that's not to say change is bad overall. If it's best for the country long term and the people long term, sometimes we need that change. Mm-hmm. But as far as the stock market is concerned, if there's gridlock, like if the House is Republican and the Senate is Democrat, and they can't get anything passed because there's not enough of a dominance. It's too close, too even for anyone to get anything through. The market loves that. That's when it does the best. Yeah.
And in that scenario too, Tony. So when you have the gridlock like that, then whatever does go through is generally best for the country.
Yes.
Because they have to negotiate it. They have to have a little bit for their side, a little bit for the other side, but more for us. Because
checks and balances are in place.
Right. Yeah. So I pulled a bunch of stats on this just to look at, because again, when people are worried about who's in power and that kind of stuff. So when you look at it all the way through, if each party if it's all divided, it averages about the same. If one party is in and they have full control, and if I look at Democrats and I look at Republicans, and they're only doing this right after the election, it's barely a separation, Tony. It's barely, but the best returns by far are, let's say a Republican or Democrat as president, doesn't make a difference, and the House and the Senate divided.
Is that the document you wanted me to share, or is that?
No, I want to share.
Okay.
No, I got another one. Hey, thanks for reminding me, Tony.
Yeah.
We're gonna hit that at the end, because that's
okay.
That's gonna
just let me know when you want me to put it up.
Yeah, because I think that, and folks, just hang on for a minute or two, because that document, I think, is the one that tells the true story. The last myth I want to go through, and each one of these, isn't it interesting? They kind of dovetail into each other. It's kind of the same conversation 4 different ways. But this one is, if I know who wins, I know what will happen to markets.
Mm-hmm.
So if I know that whoever is getting in, I know if the market's going to go up, if the market's going to go down. Not a chance. Not a chance do you know that. Like take the last 5 years. When markets have gone down, we went down because we had COVID hit. That didn't matter who was president. Like that was like, everyone run for the hills. The next thing, when the market went down after COVID, we had the longest and largest interest rate raising cycle in 40 years. Didn't really matter who was president, because that you raise interest rates, stocks just like us, and we've talked about it on the show, they don't like it. And even if you went back to 2018 was, kind of went down towards the end of the year because we were fighting with China a little bit. These things are things that happen in countries, happen in global economics, that you have very little to do. Like a little to do with the president directly. It's it could be some policies could be in there, but at the end of the day, no one knows whoever steps into office, because if you knew that, everybody'd probably vote one way, wouldn't they? If I could tell everybody, if this person gets in, the market is going to average 10% a year for the next 4 years, you'd be like, oh. And if the other one gets in, it only averages 5. Well, who are you going to pick? If you're interested in your account, you're going to pick one. If you're looking at the social things, you're going to pick one. Like whatever everyone gets their vote for those reasons. But I can't stress that enough, that you'll hear on the radio, you'll hear on TV, you will hear, in any way they can get you to click a Google click to make money. Reasons why, this person, the market will crash. This person, the market will increase. Nobody knows that. And at the end of the day, like we said earlier, it's the economy. It's what consumers are doing. It's unemployment. It's all of these factors that drive stock markets, and very little to do with Washington, at the end of the day. Tony, why don't we, let me hit this first, and then we're going to pull that up as at the end. But things to rely on. So when you're going through these, if you're one of those people that kind of get a little nervous, and we have 8 weeks, till it's all over, understand a few things. Look at your investment objectives. Number one, what's your objective with this money? Is it, to pull income through retirement? Is that one of them? Is it just for legacy for your family? Is that one of them? Then you want to look at your time horizon with that. Okay, so what's my time horizon where I really need this money? Is that a 5-year deal? Is that if it's legacy, is that a 20 or 30-year thing? And that makes your decision much easier if you understand that. Understand your risk tolerance, making sure that that's updated, making sure, life changes, over 5 years, 10 years, you may be more risky, you may be less risky, but understand that and make sure your investments are diversified. Make sure they're not all in just one chunk of something. Make sure that they're in many different strategies, that when things get topsy-turvy, like we've seen this summer, we saw August was August was a pure roller coaster, straight down, straight up, by the end of it. But if you understand, if you have your investments diversified, your objective, your risk tolerance, and understanding your time horizon, then these little blips, Tony, shouldn't get you panicked. And the election shouldn't get you panicked. Can you get like passionate? Everyone's allowed to be passionate. Can you get passionate about your candidate because you believe what they're doing? Sure. Of course you can. That's why we're American. That's why we're here. But to let it influence portfolio decisions is just it's a no-win, battle.
Yeah.
And to illustrate that, Tony, can we pull up the item I sent to you? And folks, once you see this, I've shared this, Tony, over the last 5 months or 6 months with clients as they were coming in, because I think we put this together at the beginning of the year because I knew, hey, you know what, this is going to be, it's an election year, and I always believe that the more knowledge people have, you just make better decisions, not just in finance, just in life, so the more you can learn, the better off we are. And then this little piece that I put out called the retirement plan on the ballot, just really illustrates the longevity, the different presidents how the market does. And it's a kind of you can't miss.
All right. I'm gonna grab this right here.
Okay.
Hang on.
Am I going to disappear? Is it just going?
No,
How does that work? Okay.
No, you're not. Well, I don't think so. So here we go. I'm
Okay.
opening the file. It's coming here. It takes a minute for it to process.
No, that's no
Here we
problem.
go. Here we go. There you go. See?
Okay.
There it is.
Your retirement plan on the ballot, and like clients that have been in here, we give them copies of this. If you're listening to this and you haven't had a copy of this, let us know. We'll send it out to you. Because I think this one is really good because it kind of shows, Tony, when we're looking at this screen up there, I've listed every president since 1930 and the party they're affiliated with. And the line in the middle, folks, that you see is the S&P 500. So as you can see, over time, regardless of who's in, if our economy is doing well and we're growing and the GDP is growing and unemployment remains low and people are working, it generally goes up and to the right. And think of everything that's happened from 1930 on, and everyone always says, oh, this is going to be different. It's not. They said it was going to be different before. It's a different circumstance, sure, but we have the ability in this country to solve problems. We have the ability to grow. We have the ability to pivot. Companies have this ability, and that's why that's why we're the greatest country in the world. And if you look at this chart, you'll see that the long-term average, like I noted earlier, is 9.1% long-term, and there's 4 points on the bottom, and these are great points. Consider avoiding emotional decision-making. Long-term strategy may outweigh short-term political noise. 100% true. Consider sticking with a personalized financial strategy designed to navigate any potential storm. That's what we do all day. That's why we use several different strategies inside of every portfolio. And market performance has little to do with who is in the Oval Office. And when you look at the chart above, all the way from the 30s, you will see anytime it's down, there's a reason. Anytime it's up, there's a reason.
Well, yeah, and it hit record highs during the last 3 administrations. So during Obama, it hit record highs. Then during Trump, it hit record highs during Trump's administration, and during Biden's administration. In fact, just this year, it hit record highs.
Yeah.
So it's hit record highs during every administration, Democrat or Republican. The last at least 3, almost all of the administrations on the chart, it shows it at record highs.
Yeah, it's because it's moving up, right? And And regardless of policy, and every party's got their own, they got their own way of doing things, and that's fine. We're humans. I got a different way of doing things, and somebody else has a different way of doing things, and that's fine. But the point of this show, as we're coming into the home stretch, Tony, is just know the myths and know reality, because we will get so many myths sent to us. We will see the memes. We will see it on Facebook. We're going to hear on the radio. We're going to see the news ads. We're going to see everything. And it's a lot of information to disseminate. Like what's truth? What's reality? And I don't know what truth and reality is in the political world, Tony. And I don't pretend to, but what I do know is this, and I do know how markets react. I know what the future holds, as far as, just sticking with the plan over time. I know exactly how that story ends. I don't know how the political story ends, but we'll get there in a few months, and we'll see kind of what that looks like. And you know what, folks, expect some volatility coming into it. Expect that we're in September, generally the worst month of the year for the stock market. We have an election year, so it's going to be bumpy. It's definitely going to be bumpy coming in. But I will tell you, after the election, history will tell you, regardless of who gets in, you get what's called a relief rally. More like a relief, Tony, of like, oh goodness, it's over. Oh boy, like that was a lot. That was a lot to take. And you get a relief rally. And generally it will, it'll go up a little earlier than it does, that Santa Claus rally. It'll start kind of right after, because you got 50% of the people happy, 50% of the people not so much happy. But the market tends to go, all right, now we know where we're going for the next 4 years. Let's go. And definitely something to look forward to. So if you're one of those people that wears your heart on your sleeve with this kind of stuff, wear it, talk to your friends, your relatives, just don't mess with your portfolio, because it just never works out in your favor.
Yeah. Yeah. Great show today, Rob, and a lot of great advice. Don't panic. And I think one of the keys to avoiding issues with your portfolio, no matter who gets in office, is to work with a financial services professional like yourself.
Great.
So before we go, let our listeners know how they can get a hold of you.
Well, you can always call us at 630-780-1099. I'd encourage you, go to our site, apadvisorsgroup.com. Like we've said on the show, and I've told Tony, we updated that, I want to say maybe 8 weeks ago. So there's a lot of good stuff on there. There's a lot of good videos. There's things that can help you. You can book an appointment right on there. You can take a risk tolerance, Tony, right on that site. See, we talked about risk earlier as something you can do to kind of calm the nerves and make sure you're lined up. You can definitely do that on the site, but go on the site, tour around. You'll see, lots about us, and like things that will help you in your retirement, building legacy, and so forth.
All right. Well, great show today, Rob. Thanks for that. Listeners and viewers, thanks for tuning in. That does it for today's episode of Ready, Aim, Retire with our host, Rob Kirvan.